and the byproduct of everyone dumping dollars, those who've had to stockpile them for the last 50 years, creating this synthetic demand, would create a tsunami of inflation, hyperinflation, if they all dumped in unison. Operation Sandman, it's called. Google it, you'll see. Mike Adams talks about it all the time, that there's 175 countries that have agreed to do this at some point. Wouldn't surprise me at all. But when that happens on a Sunday night, Monday morning, you wake up to a tsunami of inflation that just hit our shores. Interest rates spike to the moon.
Connection established.
Folks, right now silver is on sale and I have the perfect deals for you. We have the legendary 1 ounce silver Fight for America Trump bars for only $6 over spot, minimum of $20. We have 90% half dollars for only $2.50 over spot. We also have 1 ounce silver eagles for only $5.50 over spot. Philharmonics for only $3.10 over spot. And last but not least, we have 1 ounce gold American Buffaloes for only $99 over spot. Email me slayer@milesfranklin.com, or you could call me 330-485-6172. And make sure you subscribe for daily silver videos. And one last thing, folks, I promise we're about to jump into this incredible video, but real quick, my mom had her breast cancer surgery last week. It's her 4th surgery. She'll be out of work for over a month, so if you wanted to help donate, I'll link the GoFundMe in the description or the pinned comment. Anything helps, even just giving your prayers and your best wishes. With that said, let's jump into the video.
Now, I've been talking about, look, I said you can inflate, which all governments have done. You can default, which some have done. I've talked for the last 2 years about signing an executive order to go green, weaponizing the dollar, incentivizing the world to dump dollars because we've lost our mind here domestically. We're creating massive amounts of debt. We're stealing Russian assets. We're doing everything we can to shed the reserve currency, a la Jared Bernstein's wishes, right? And the byproduct of everyone dumping dollars, those who have had to stockpile them for the last 50 years, creating this synthetic demand, would create a tsunami of inflation, hyperinflation, if they all dumped in unison. Operation Sandman, it's called. Google it, you'll see. Mike Adams talks about it all the time, that there's 175 countries that have agreed to do this at some point. Wouldn't surprise me at all. But when that happens on a Sunday night, Monday morning, you wake up to a tsunami of inflation that just hit our shores. Interest rates spike to the moon. And that resets everything. Stocks, bonds, real estate, the banks, the insurance companies, bang, they're gone. And now we have a villain to point to. Well, that's option 3. So you've got inflate, default, incite everyone to dump and find a villain, and option 4. And here you have Senator Loomis talking about it. Revalue gold. And with all of these countries accumulating gold the way that they are, with all of them repatriating gold the way that they are, the central banks buying more than any time in history, with the BIS, the most powerful bank in the world, reclassifying it as the only other tier 1 asset, with the talk of it backing the new unit currency, the new settlement currency that the BRICS have said in principle, including Dilma Rousseff, the head of the BRICS New Development Bank, the former president of Brazil. In principle, we've agreed to it. We're going to ratify it in China in September and maybe roll it out to the world in October. With all of this happening, it wouldn't surprise me one bit to see gold revalued to a level no one can imagine. And you're right. Operation Sandman right there is a scary, scary thing. If it happens, that resets the system just like that, as everyone dumps dollars in treasuries and interest rates spike to the moon. And now you have a villain, those bastards, Xi Jinping, Putin, and OPEC. How could they do it to us? The whole system resets. But then you have number 2 at the White House, Lael Brainerd, the modern monetary theorist who developed the CBDC with MIT, who ran point for FedNow, Venmo and Zelle on steroids backed by the Fed. You know, this is her wet dream. So could these things be possible? Hell yeah, they could be. Any way you look at it, I found it very interesting that we now hear people in the United States speaking of the gold revaluation account. And it was at that Bitcoin conference right after Trump spoke about his idea of having a strategic Bitcoin account. Well, how do you pay for it? Revalue the Fed's gold is what she said.
Wow, that's scary. I gotta look into Operation Sandman. I never even heard of that term before, but that is very interesting. And
Yeah, Mike Adams, the health ranger, talks about it all the time. And, you know, I don't know where it comes from. I can't verify it, but I will tell you that it wouldn't surprise me one bit at all. And and this is why they've slowly been selling treasuries and buying gold, because gold has doubled the performance of the 10-year treasury, can't be taken. So if indeed that was a plan, you can't just do it because you'll kill yourself. You'll cut your nose off to spite your face. You have to slowly de-treasurize and de-dollarize and get yourself in a position through accumulation of other assets like commodities before you pull
Yeah.
the trigger. Who
Before.
knows when that is? And, I could see it being the day after the election if the wrong side wins. Who
Right.
knows? But I would simply say to you that where there's smoke, there's fire. And this is not about getting rich. It's about protecting yourself. Now, it's a very unusual time when I would look at silver and say, my God, I don't know that there's a better place to put your money from an upside potential. And kills two birds with one stone, gets you out of the way of the possible destruction of the system, and at the same time gives you tremendous upside potential. So I
Yeah.
understand that. It would be disingenuous of me to ignore that. But I all the gold and silver I've ever accumulated, yeah, I know it will perform just fine, but I've purchased it not just for that. I've purchased it because it's been money forever. And I just think that, where we are going now more than any time in my career, you can see the biggest money in the world understands that, and that's the central banks. They know the plan, and when you see China going around and literally paying double what any other Western country will pay for unrefined silver concentrate and doré and shipping it home, so it is not reflected in a price increase, it's genius. And they use all of the trade imbalance from us buying their trinkets and party favors in order to do it. So yeah, final chapter hasn't been written, Jay, not even close.
Yeah. Just follow the money. Like, why would the most powerful countries, the wealthiest people, most successful investors, the biggest banks all be buying so much silver if it wasn't worth anything? Just do what those people do and you'll probably be on a good foot. This is really interesting. It says that Operation Sandman is described as a potential night of the switch, where countries would abruptly move away from the US dollar to a new global reserve currency, upending the existing financial order. Proponents argue that BRICS nations have a shared interest in de-dollarizing and reducing reliance on the US dollar, which gives the US economic leverage through sanctions and policies. But night of the switch is is a very, scary way to
Sounds
turn
like a
to
horror
term.
movie, but
You're
but it
right.
is in some ways a horror movie. And again, what did I just say? It'll happen on a Sunday night. You'll wake
Right.
up to a new reality, and if you haven't prepared, you're screwed. Period. That is how it will happen. And is it that far off to think that it could when you realize that they have agreed to a new settlement currency that's backed by gold, deliverable in gold, using Project Bridge blockchain system where Saudi Arabia has become a full participant in it, a full participant, and US dollars are not compatible with the Bridge. And, I mean, how much do you really need to hear? And this is why, as I mentioned to you, and maybe on your show, I don't know if it was on your show or with Sean when we talked, but if you read the white paper on the unit, all of the gold is held that mints these unit tokens will be held within the borders of the countries that mint it, audited independently, continuously, but within the borders. That's why they're all repatriating it. 40 plus countries have brought all their gold home from the Bank of England and the New York Fed. Why have they left it there? Because the Bank of England gives you direct access to the LBMA. India just brought home 100 metric tons they've had there since 1991. They bought 1.5 times the amount of gold they bought all of last year in the first 4 months of this year and had it shipped back to India instead of the LBMA. And the COMEX, that's the New York Fed. You leave it at the New York Fed, safe jurisdiction, Western rule of law, LOL, and you have access to COMEX. Now they're all saying, screw it, give it to me, I want it. Well, it's people think it's because of the lack of counterparty trust anymore and the risks involved with not aligning with the West. But it's more than that. I mean, Project Bridge and the new unit token, which the head of the BRICS New Development Bank, the former president of Brazil, said in principle they have agreed upon, and it will be backed by gold and deliverable, and all traded over Bridge, which is not part of the Western ability to sanction. No Western intermediary banks. I mean, so yeah, these things are happening. And if all of a sudden, which they've already said in principle, we've agreed upon it, we're going to have a meeting in September to ratify it, and with the intention of bringing it to the big BRICS meeting in October. What if they
Right.
came out and said, we're done, this is it?
That's
I
what I
mean,
was gonna say.
how hard would it be to imagine that night of the switch? It would be on a Sunday night, and bang, you wake up and all hell has broken loose. It would be a religious experience for many people.
Yeah, I mean, how many countries are going to that BRICS meeting October? Like,
Well, I can tell you that there was I think over 20,000 people just at the one in Novigrad, representing, I don't know how many countries. 59 countries said that they want to join BRICS. So a lot. I don't know
I
how
mean,
many, but a lot. I'm sure a simple Google search would pull it up, but
yeah,
a lot. And there you have the Western leaders right there. They're all a bunch of nut jobs, every one of them.
right, right,
From Macron to what's his name in Canada, and Biden, and it's just they're all horrible, and the whole system needs to change. It truly does, because these people are leading us down a very dangerous path that leads to socialism, universal basic income, loss of privacy, loss of capitalism. All of the things that made this country great are going down the tube. And Tim Walz, what a knucklehead this guy is, man. I left Minnesota because of him. So you put him and Kamala together, and you got one really ridiculous peanut butter and jelly sandwich, like enough to make you choke on it, every bite. And that was a really weird
yeah,
analogy, but all I can simply tell you is that he's an idiot, and
yeah,
that's coming from someone who lived his whole life in Minnesota.
yeah. That's scary. And by the way, that Senator Loomis, she's from Wyoming. But that's scary to think because the worst part for me is that he's good at speaking. So a lot of people won't even care about his policies as long as he can talk, or sound good talking. Um, that could be a lot more dangerous than someone who has strong policies.
Well, and what does that say for the intelligence
Right,
of the United States?
right,
Like, and that's why I say price is a tool of misdirection. No one lifts up the hood. Same thing here. Yeah, you can speak, unlike Kamala and Biden. So there you go. You should be president because
right,
you actually can speak. I mean,
right.
good for you. How about, what are your policies? What did you do in the state of Minnesota except let the city burn and the third precinct burn on national TV, turn down Trump when he offered the National Guard? I mean, all of these things, or the military turned them down. Literally, I don't know what happened to the surplus they had there. And with the surplus, raising income taxes, and everything about it was just ridiculous. They have 10% state income tax in that state. I mean, really, the state of Minnesota? What do you get for it besides mosquitoes and cold weather?
Yeah,
I don't mean to rip on Minnesota, because I've spent 50 years there, and it'll always be home. But what they've done to that state was enough to make me leave. And I used to say to my wife, I'm not leaving. We're never moving. My family's here. My business is here. I can't leave. And then COVID came. I saw how stupid they were to it. I saw, I was sleeping with an AR-15 on my nightstand every night because they said Antifa was coming out to the suburbs and the police aren't coming. So shelter in place and lock your doors at 7 o'clock at night. I mean, really? And so I moved to Florida, and I've never looked back. But I will tell you that, in my opinion, Walls is not someone that people should be excited about in any way. I can vouch for it.
yeah. I'm really worried, and I don't even know. I don't even want to get too far into that stuff. Uh, but yeah, is there anything else you wanted to end off on? We've been going for like 50 minutes or so. Um,
No, I don't think so, my man. I mean, I just love doing these with you. And I guess I'll say one other thing. And I know this is a show that speaks of silver. And when I speak of gold, I mean silver too. But
right.
I don't have the statistics for silver, just for gold in front of me here. And that is that when we talk about what gold can do for you, um, and what silver can do for you, it's not about making money as much as it is preserving it, and purchasing power. And no better place do you see that than in Japan, where 10 years ago an ounce of gold was 140,000 yen. All right. And today it's 345,635 yen for 1 ounce of gold. And, so what are you talking? Almost a 300% increase in 10 years in the price of gold, just under. And so, it's not about gold going up as much as it is the currency that we value it in getting clobbered. And that's what something like Operation Sandman would do overnight to gold and silver. You'd see it just go to the moon. It's not gold and silver going to the moon, it's the dollar being
Right.
forsaken, dumped, just as the Japanese yen has been clobbered. And so gold and silver are sitting on the ledge of the bathtub, not moving. You pull the plug on the water and let the price collapse of the dollar, or the demand for it, or in this case, the yen. Did silver and gold go higher? No, the currency that we measured against went lower. All currencies since the beginning of time are inherently meant to die. They revert to their intrinsic value of nothing,
Yep.
if you pull away something like gold from backing it. And that's why you're seeing countries now revert full circle into understanding that what gold does is it represents integrity. It represents a tether to the whims of the politicians, if you will, their desire to always choose inflation over the tough decisions. So yes, I think gold and silver have never been more important to own, and especially right now, and Japan is showing you that, and it's showing you how close we are to the razor's edge. Do you want to wake up on a Monday and realize you were screwed because you wanted to see validation first, or do you trust your gut and what the biggest money in the world is doing? That's the way that I operate, and that's why I like doing these shows with you. So at least I can, it's kind of cathartic to me to get up and speak about this stuff as often as I do. Some would say, "Well, that's all you talk about." Well, it's kind of my mission in life, because when
Yeah.
I'm around my friends, I don't. I keep quiet because, unless this is something you're predisposed into understanding, it's depressing. And a lot of people would
Mm.
find it depressing. And I understand that. It's depressing to me too. It's depressing that my children are growing up in this screwed up world. But like I keep saying, would you rather be run over blindsided on a Monday morning, or know what the hell is coming and do the best you can, not only
Yeah.
to survive, maybe even thrive? If something like that happened and you had your assets positioned properly that spiked to the moon, what do you think valuations of real estate and stocks would be like the next day? And the people who have dry powder, well, they may be able to do something with it. Maybe that's that home that you wanted on the lake in Ohio forever. That's just really beautiful, that all of a sudden is trading at pennies on the dollar. Because what is property worth in an environment where interest rates were at zero for 20 years? What are stocks worth in that same environment? And what happens when rates rise high enough? You have to have an equilibrium between asset value and interest rates. And we haven't had that for a long time. No one knows what price discovery is. So it's interesting that gold and silver were two of the only assets that weren't jacked up. They were held down. Everything else got jacked up. So when you talk about a great place to protect, you got two assets that the biggest money in the world is accumulating and haven't been jacked up. But you look at house prices. What the hell is a house worth at 3% versus 13 or 23%? And so when you think about where things could go, asset prices, the banks that are over leveraged and undercapitalized, the insurance companies loaded 90% with treasuries. It'll be hell if that Operation Sandman happens. It'll be scary. And the people you love and care about will be screwed. And they'll all be banging on your door. Jay, help me out, brother. I know, I should have listened to you. I should have listened to you. And that'll
Right.
happen.